Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Art of MMA. I'm your host, Mike Ginn. Of course, Art of MMA on the Fighters First Network, fightersfirst.shop. Check out all the latest merch. Support the show. Support your boys. I do not do this show alone. Of course, I'm joined as always by the mechanic, Brandon Cuttino. Brandon, what's up, buddy?
Hey, man, it's always good to talk to you after a Giants win. You know, Giants win, talking some fights. It's a good Wednesday.
We haven't been able to say that this year. There hasn't been any. We used to have, what was it, Football Tuesdays? Now it's like Football Wednesdays. We haven't been able to say that this year. So Sergio, I know, has been smiling up above that we haven't been able to say anything. So
yeah, I mean, and the Jets won too. They both won in overtime.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was a crazy week. But let's not have everybody tune off the show already. Of course, this episode, we're going to talk about UFC Vegas 38, Santos versus Walker. We're going to get into the controversy over Lima MVP 2 at Bellator. We're going to get into some news, talk about the unfortunate passing of an MMA fighter / bare knuckle fighter, talk about Poirier, Oliveira, get into some of these UFC cuts. Got an intervention to stage later in the rant, and then we're going to finish up, make our picks. UFC Vegas 39, Rodriguez versus Dern this weekend. So we're going to get into all that. Like I did mention, fightersfirst.shop. I got the Art of MMA tee. He's got that Talk Less, Fight More tee. Always a couple dope things. Some big things coming in the shop. If you've been sitting there paying attention to our social media, we just dropped the Alex Soto Extremo collection, which is dope. And obviously the big news has been coming out this last week. We're just waiting for the big corporate level. We already got it on board with the British Bulldog family. British Bulldog collection, officially licensed collection, coming to Fighters First very, very, very soon. Should have the paperwork this week and get that signed and into action. I'm going to have Georgia Smith, the daughter of the British Bulldog, on Unfiltered on October 12th, so make sure you keep an eye out for that. And that's pretty much all the business at hand. I think it's time to get to some action, Brandon. What do you think?
I'm ready.
All right, let's go ahead and start talking about it. UFC Vegas 38. Thiago Santos versus Johnny Walker. Thiago Santos finally back in the win column after a few hiccups. We talked about it last episode. Ever since he had those knee surgeries, he hasn't quite been himself. Seemed to move a little bit better this fight. Got a little bit better. But then after the fight, we turned out now Johnny Walker was the one actually dealing with an injury, kind of fighting through it this one. So we might not have gotten the best Johnny Walker that we did, but it was still a pretty close and exciting fight. What did you think of the action? And tell the people at home what happened.
Hey, man, I was entertained by the fight. I know a lot of people, they were expecting a slugfest, but it was a nice, tactical fight, in which I kind of like that. I do like to see the thinkings, of a fighter's mind, what their plans are. But to me, I think that Thiago Santos won this fight. I could either see it be 3 rounds to 2 or 4 rounds to 1. Because Johnny Walker, he definitely took the first round. I gave Santos the second and third round, and I gave Santos the 5th round as well. It's the 4th round, which is the one where to me it could have went either way. But like I said, either way, I gave Santos the W. It was kind of interesting because to me, if you watch that fight and you listen to Johnny Walker's corner, which of course now, saying he's been hanging out in Ireland at the SB gym, with Greg Kavanaugh. They basically to me, they were trying to have Johnny Walker kind of keep Santos at bay, like they kind of wanted him to jab him and throw low kicks. But the thing is though, man, with Santos really was throwing the more powerful shots, which is what to me is what won him the rounds. Like I said, because to me, really the number one thing is always damage is what people are looking for. And so Santos, man, he was throwing those body kicks, man, and you can see when he hit the body, Johnny Walker would drop his hand back up a little bit. I know Johnny Walker was talking about, oh man, I want to go to hell. I want Santos to take me to hell. But it really didn't seem like that's what he really wanted in the fight, because he would get in there, they would have a couple exchanges, he would maybe feel Santos's power, and then he would back out of it and be like, nah, I don't think I really want this. But like you said, maybe he was dealing with an injury, but hey man, the injury did not stop him from dancing when he was walking out to the cage. So he was still able to move around. But yeah, man, to me, man, it was just a good fight. I thought Santos, he really did his thing though. It was a good bounce back.
My thoughts initially are there's two things when you talk about having an injury after a fight, right? One, if it was that bad, you wouldn't have fought, right? You would have pulled out, which I mean, Johnny Walker has done in the past. He's not a stranger to like changing fights. And then you talk about him dancing and stuff coming out, and he allegedly had a leg injury, which means, to me, and maybe you could speak on this better as a fighter, your adrenaline's probably carrying you through the first couple rounds. Like whether you have an injury or not, your adrenaline's you're not feeling no pain. You're in that moment. But the longer that fight goes on, 3, 4, 5 rounds, then I think that's where the injury might kind of come into play, because you might not, especially with the later rounds, you're not going to have what you want to have in that cage. But as far as the fight goes, I haven't heard too many people complaining about the decision. I think it was a pretty good decision based on what I've read and heard from other MMA fighters and experts. It's good to see Thiago back. I think the difference was, I think Johnny Walker might have they might have had to try to do some of that like rockage technique where like, keep him at bay with the distance and stuff like that and try to do that. Thiago's going to come in and try to throw his power shots. It's what he's done his whole career. So that's what he's known for. He hasn't been able to do it a lot in the past couple fights. Nice to see him get some of that back. And, we talked about it last week. When you come off knee injuries, look at football. Look at Saquon Barkley, right? Week in, week out. Now all of a sudden, week 3, 4, he's starting to look a little bit like old Saquon, especially on that catch and run. Mixing a little football here. He's starting to look like it a little bit more. Same thing with Thiago Santos. A year plus, 2 years plus, he's not that old of a fighter. You start getting a little bit more out of those legs. And he had double leg surgeries, like both knees. So it's going to take some time. The more he can move, the more he gets comfortable moving left and right and not just having to stay in the pocket because he can't really move the way he used to move. And he was never like a big dancer, but he could obviously good footwork. I think that changes everything. So if Thiago's getting healthier and stronger in those knees, I think he can come back to being a contender. But I don't know if this is the fight that kind of establishes him as being a contender again, especially after losing a couple top 5 fights. As far as what's next for everybody, you got to kind of look at it a little bit. Over in the light heavyweight division, it's always kind of jam-packed, especially since the UFC kind of elected Yuri Prochazka to kind of jump the line over everybody because he's had so much international experience. And I know Dana's been trying to get him in the UFC for a while. So he got his one win, and all of a sudden he's on standby for a title shot. I've never really understood that, especially with guys like Anthony Smith, Alexander Rakic, Thiago, Reyes, all these guys in that kind of like murderer's row. And then this one guy comes in brand new, wins a fight, and all of a sudden he's like the next guy. That I didn't really understand. I know Yuri's earned it as far as like his career outside of the UFC, but he hasn't really done it in the UFC. And I think almost Michael Chandler-esque, like some of the guys that are already there want you to earn it, win a couple fights. So that's kind of a question, what comes next? Do we see a Thiago Santos versus like somebody who's kind of resurrecting right now, Anthony Smith? I think that'd be a fun fight. I also think Thiago versus a Dominic Reyes or an Ankalaev who's coming up, something like that could be fun. What do you think should be next for Thiago?
To be honest, the answer should be Yuri, but like you said, Yuri's on standby. I know. To me, I think Santos really he could be waiting because was it Rakic and Anthony Smith? I believe they're gonna fight in December. And to me, why would you fight Dom Reyes when he's basically on a 3-fight losing streak right now? So to me, you wouldn't fight him. So that's why to me it's either Yuri or a title, or you just wait until the title is free, or you wait for your a Rakic and Smith to fight, and you maybe get the winner there.
I'll throw one other name out there. Well, there's two things. One, he could also fight the loser of Jan versus Glover. He could fight that loser who's looking to bounce back and fight a top opponent. That would be certainly an option. But another name that people really haven't talked about since he had that fight with Jamal Hill is Paul Craig. Having a Paul Craig jump up and continue his rise against somebody like that would be an interesting matchup because obviously Thiago with the Brazilian background, and he doesn't show it very often, but he does have some pretty good jiu-jitsu skills. He showed it earlier in his career. He doesn't show it as much now because he likes to stand and bang. But a Thiago Santos would be a great test for somebody like Paul Craig who's looking to jump up in the standings. Ankalaev's another one. At this point, coming off a couple losses himself before he got this win, Santos was kind of in the same boat as Reyes. So there's some options there. It'll be interesting to see what the UFC does with that. As far as Johnny Walker, I think he has to kind of maybe somebody like Dominic Reyes or somebody like Ozdemir or Krylov or somebody in that range might be a matchup for him to try to get back and get right. But if he has an injury, maybe that should come first anyway. Co-main event didn't go as exciting. Got stopped early on. Kevin Holland versus Kyle Dawkins ended up in a no contest because of an accidental headbutt. What did you make of that whole situation?
Yeah, man. I mean, to me, either way, they came to the right conclusion because to me, the fight should have stopped with the headbutt because the headbutt did put Holland out, but he just woke back up. So that's why Dan let it go. But if you saw it, like when he was having his huddle with Herb Dean, he said he was going to stop it, but then Holland kept on fighting. But the thing is, though, still, man, dude, somebody was out. You know, you should stop it. You know, so I mean, either way, it became a no contest because remember everything all happened because of the headbutt. You know, he got dropped like that. He was able to get his back. Because of the headbutt. So I mean, it's a no contest. Good news is that they are going to run it back next month. I think it's
November 13th.
Yep, exactly. November 13th. Same card as my teammate Julio Arce's fighting. So make sure you guys will be looking out for that. So I'm happy for it. You know.
Yeah, November 13th is going to be a fight night card. It's the week after the big New York event. It kind of sucks they couldn't get Julio on that New York event, obviously being a local guy. But yeah, Kevin Holland, Kyle Dawkins, November 13th. They're running it back. I just thought it was such a weird situation. I didn't see it live. I only saw the highlights afterwards. And I saw what people were saying online about it. And it was just such a weird situation. But hey, that seems to be a Kevin Holland thing lately. But I don't think this rematch is going to go any better for him. I think Kyle Dawkins is still going to do it, and Kevin's going to probably spend most of his time taking down criminals in his neighborhood. I think that's probably his future right now.
Yeah, the true hero though of this whole thing is, hey, we all know that instant replay does work. You know, we wish like more commissions would do it because I know here in New Jersey they do it. I think they really were the first ones to really use it. Vegas is now using it now too. But the big commission should use instant replay. And also like another thing that I did hear about which I kind of never really thought of. I'm like, man, maybe that would be a good idea. Is you really do see it in other sports, but that would be like that would be to have another referee. But maybe this referee's like out, on the outside of the cage, because like I said, because inside, man, like I said, it's a lot happening. Just like in hockey, they have 2 refs. Basketball, they have 3. In football, they have a whole bunch of people. There's a whole bunch of officials out there. There's 1 ref, but they're all like side judges and stuff like that. I
don't even think they need to have a ref outside the cage. I think they can just have one in the booth. Somebody who's or at a table outside, obviously, in combat sports like a boxing or MMA, have a guy at the table watching the monitor. Not watching what's going on in the cage. Watching the monitor.
Yeah, exactly.
So he could see angles that maybe you pick up on a camera that we see at home that they might not see live because things happen so fast.
Yeah, because that's the thing too. Because like I said, because one of the things too is like when you're the ref, like you see them, they're walking around trying to find that right angle where they can see everything. And maybe that moment when they're walking, that's when something happens. They can't see it because they're not in the proper side. But that other person, they could see it. Like for instance. Me, man, I'm a big Herb Dean fan, but I know you sometimes like to pick on him. But the Uriah Faber
run your race, Brandon. Run your race. Stop throwing me in your rant. Go ahead. Uriah Faber, he had his title fight at the Prudential Center. I can't remember who. But basically, like he was calling a submission. So many title fights, you got to be.
Yeah, but he was calling a submission. He was giving Herb Dean a thumbs up. But Herb Dean was on the other side and he couldn't see it. So Herb Dean had stopped the fight. But it's one of those things like, if there was a ref on there, would have started, but like, nah, it's good. And then maybe they could like restart it and stuff like that. But Like say, I mean, it's just another topic. Like say, you know, I'm sure not all commissions could do it, but at least the big ones, you know, California, Nevada, New Jersey.
It was Henan Barrow, right?
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, Henan Barrow. Yep.
I think it was the second time.
Yeah.
No, I mean, there's so many ways they can go with that, but I mean, they won't even adopt open scoring at this point, so I don't have much hope for the UFC changing what they're doing for any reason. Maybe universally in MMA, we might see something like that, but the UFC is going to kind of stick by it until it becomes universal and mainstream before they adopt anything new. They do adopt like commission rules, like they changed obviously the definition of a down fighter and some things like that. They do tweak stuff, but stuff like that as far as outside the cage and stuff like that and replay, I think they leave up to the commissions to kind of decide that. So obviously we know what's next for both fighters. Clear cut. They're running it back on the 13th. Elsewhere on the card, I did pretty well this week, Brandon. I was 3-1-1. You were as well. Obviously, one of the loss that I had was the main event because I had picked Johnny Walker. You did so. We'll talk about it a little bit later in Bellator. That was pretty much your loss as well. But as far as our other picks, we all got right. I picked Nico Price over Alex Oliveira. I'm surprised it went to a decision. But Nico looked great. He's called out both Diaz brothers, not just one. He called out both. He's like, I'd love to fight either one. Obviously, he did it respectful. He just wants to go to war with somebody, and who better, right? Who better than a Diaz brother to just sit in there and exchange with for 3 rounds, 5 rounds, whatever it is. Jocko got the win over Kirkinov, split decision. What'd you make of that split decision? Good call?
Yeah, man. I definitely thought Jocko won that fight, man. I mean, he was more control. He was more active. He was really going after it, especially in that third round. Where like I think there was a low blow, there was a break, but man, Jocko was trying to call BS on it. But you know, it was good, and then he just went back to work.
Alexander Hernandez got the win over Breeden. Big knockout in the first round. Jared Gordon got the split decision over Joe Selecki, a couple of Northeast guys. Jared Gordon, I don't know what to make of him sometimes because he made a statement about not too long ago about how he had to go back down to 145. It was 155. He just wasn't as strong as some of those guys. But then he makes this fight at 155 with Joe Selecki, which I'm sure the UFC was probably like, hey, we got a fight for you, but it's at 155. Do you want to take it? And Jared's not really somebody to back out of a fight. And then he turns around and calls out people at 155 after the fight. So I'm not really sure where Jared's going with that, whether the weight cut's an issue or what's the situation personally. I haven't talked to him in a while. But I'm happy he got the win. Another split decision. Do you think that one was a good call?
Oh yeah, man. No, Jared Gordon did his thing. I mean, I think maybe he could be on a new strength and conditioning program, you know, to help him, bulk up for a 155. That's what I'm thinking. But I don't know. Like,
he's down in South Florida with all those guys, so he could definitely be on something brand new. And I always see him on social media talking about his health and his diet. So, you want to talk about your fight real quick? Casey O'Neill getting the stoppage over Shevchenko. Yeah, man, it was a good fight for O'Neill. Like I kind of had a feeling, hey, man, you get the fight to the ground. Good things will definitely happen for it, and that's what happens. You got the fight to the ground. She was going to work, man, with her ground and pound. She was really went to the second round.
No. I mean, like, hey, man, Shevchenko's tough. She isn't a pushover or anything like that. So I'm not really surprised about that. But hey, man, second round just went just like how the first round ended. And she got on top, did her thing, got that hand raised. So I was happy for that.
Also on the card, of course, Carol Rosa. I don't think there was much surprise getting the win over Betch Correa, sending Betch into retirement. That fight had been kind of delayed for a while. Rosa just kind of dominated that one. Kind of hard, like she said afterwards, kind of bittersweet to be the one to kind of retire Betch Correa, but at the same time, Betch has been doing this for a long time. You got to remember, Betch goes all the way back to the Ronda Rousey days, where Ronda actually ended her undefeated streak at that point. I actually called this one as well. I put it on my DraftKings and everything. Jamie Malarkey with the win over Devontae Smith. I didn't know it was going to be a knockout like that in the second round, the TKO. But I think a lot of people sleep on Jamie Malarkey. I think he's going to be an up and comer for quite a pretty soon, like in the contenders, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Douglas Silva with the win over Douglas Silva de Andrade over Perello, a knockout in the first round. Edgar versus Young, another TKO in the second round. And then finishing up with Alejandro Perez over Johnny Eduardo by submission, a scarfold arm lock, which you can never go wrong with that in the second round. Any other thoughts on any of those fights before we move on?
Man, it really was a pretty good fight card. I really did enjoy the fights.
Awesome. It was definitely an entertaining event. Definitely looking forward to see what they do next with Thiago and a couple of the other people on the card, Nico Price as well. So we'll see what they do with that and Casey O'Neill. I definitely want to see what kind of – I mean, she's still undefeated. You got to give her a contender at this point. So we'll see what they do with Casey O'Neill. No disrespect to Shevchenko, but she's a mid to late 30s at this point. She's the older sister of Valentina. So we'll see what they do with her and give her somebody that can be a little bit more competitive. Now the card, I'm sure that Brandon's been kind of itching to talk about. Bellator 267, Lima versus MVP 2. MVP gets his revenge, gets the split decision nod over Douglas Lima. Obviously caused a huge uproar on social media. A lot of people believe that Lima might have edged out Paige in that situation. I'm a big advocate for some kind of open scoring, either the system like that, the system like one, where you kind of just pick a winner based on the entire action. I think that takes away from a situation like this, because this was one of those situations. Did you think it was based on damage? Did you think it was based on control? Did you think it was based on accuracy and strikes? Do you think it was based on takedowns? This, and that. Tell the fans at home what you thought of the fight, who you thought actually won the fight, and was the decision good or not?
The answer to your question is no. The decision was not good. Douglas Lima won this fight. Dude, if you just look at the stats, man, the stats even are telling you what happened. Like,
I'm not going to disagree with those stats, but I'm just saying sometimes stats aren't exactly.
Yeah. But I'm saying, man, like MVP, he definitely is an MVP. Definitely won the first round, hands down. He dropped Lima twice. But Lima did bounce back up. But I gave that was MVP's round, the first round. But second and third round was all Lima. Controlled him with his takedowns, got him down, and just, to me, man, he was just more active. Like saying, like, MVP, he likes to wait and counter. Like say, I mean, dude, he almost got his lights put out. Same way he did the first time because Lima he did the kick and the uppercut again on him. But he just doesn't have the same power as he did last time. Like I said, man, just looking, because I'm looking at it right on my phone, so people can't be like, oh, he's looking at his phone. But look at dude, total you look at it.
Don't read the comments. Don't
dude, total strikes, bro. Lima hit him 25 times to MVP 17. Of course, Lima was 2 for 2 for takedowns. He had more kicks, more elbows, more punches, all of it. Lima definitely outstruck him. Like I said, you give MVP the first round. Hands down, you can't dispute that. But second and third round, for sure, was all Douglas Lima.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. I'm happy MVP won because I got my pick right, but that's the only reason. I didn't have a dog in this fight either way. I think MVP is a more exciting fighter for the fans at home. I think Douglas Lima is by far the more all-round, better MMA fighter. But in this case, I think it sets up the trilogy. I know, unfortunately, for Amosov, that means Amosov is left waiting without an opponent for that title, because I don't think Paige is going to immediately get that title shot now with a controversial split decision. I feel like Scott Coker even kind of hinted at it in his press conference that they may run the trilogy fight back first to see like who gets the edge between Lima and Paige. He didn't seem very over-convinced that Paige won this fight either. But a decision is a decision. And as people like to say, 5 years from now, when you look at the records, you're just going to see that Paige beat Lima. And nobody's going to care about the who's, wows, and whys. Even if you see it's a split decision, they're probably not going to debate it the more the time goes by. So right now they're 1-1. Lima, obviously, the more definitive victory with the knockout. Paige gets the split decision nod. They got to run it back, in my opinion. What do you think's next for either one of them? You think either one deserves a title shot at this point, or do you think they should run it back too?
To me, Jason Jackson should be the next guy to fight for the title. We already went over this before that he's done
at this point. I think he is going to be.
I'm saying he should be, but also too, man. Like,
they're also talking about him and Gracie running the back.
Yeah, nah, man, dude. Jason Jackson, he should get that title shot. He did enough things, man. He should be next. But to me, man, MVP was the one. Not MVP was the one really clamoring for the trilogy fight. And to be honest with you, I think the reason why is because I don't think he really wants to fight for the title. Reason being is, man, because we talked about this earlier with AJ McKee, and my thing is, man, MVP might think that if he wins, then he has that, championship clause, and he's going to be stuck in it for like another 3 fights. And I mean, he said it like in a few interviews a while back, how, he has stuff about, going to the UFC and everything like that. I mean, hey, maybe he just wants to be a free agent, test the market, see who's willing to pay him more and things like that. So I'm just thinking, he just wants to get this Lima fight in this way. There's another fight off his contract.
Do you know how many fights he has left on his contract?
No, that I do not know.
I've heard him talk about the UFC before too.
Yeah, I'm saying he wouldn't answer because I remember before he did an interview and somebody had asked him, and of course, like most fighters, he was like, "Oh man, I don't know how many fights I have left." So I'm just putting it out there. I mean, hey, I could be wrong. I'm just thinking he could just be thinking
I don't think you are. I think that's actually a very good angle to talk about, because I do believe MVP does want to get out of Bellator, not because I think he's treated badly by Bellator. I think if anything, they boosted him up, even during the pandemic, giving him fight cards in London and stuff like that, which is something UFC hasn't even really done with a lot of the British guys. They brought them all to Vegas because they didn't want to deal with it. Whereas Page has been able to stay home. A lot of fights in his career, he's been able to fight right there in England. So, but he has always wanted to test himself on the biggest stage, which he considers to be UFC. So he hasn't been shy about talking about that in the past. He did sign a new deal back in 2018, but I don't know how many fights that was for. So we'll see how that plays out. I do expect the trilogy to happen, only just to work out the division in that top 5. And I do hope Jason Jackson gets that next title fight. As far as co-main event, Leah McCourt took care of business against Jessica Borga. I did say Borga would be a little tougher than people kind of think she would have been. You're shaking your head. What do you think of that fight?
I was going to say, man, Jessica Borga should have just stayed as one of Lashley's ladies, bro. That's it. That's all I got to say.
And then there's the pro wrestling reference right there. She did win a round. I mean, I know one judge had it 30-27, but I definitely, I was sitting there looking at some of the clips and some of the fight, and because I didn't see that one live as well either, because I was busy, unfortunately, doing my real job. I love doing this, and this is, I'd say all the time, we do this because this is our passion. We break this show every week because this is our passion. We love to talk about it with you, the fans, but do have to pay our bills sometimes. So unfortunately, I did have to work, and I was missing some of that. I know you guys think I just sit at home all the time and not do anything else, but I have a job as well. Just like Brandon, who's training nonstop all the time at Tiger Schulman's and teaching kids and stuff like that. We got stuff we got to do sometimes. We do miss some of the action, but like Brandon likes to say all the time, he's here to carry me when I need carrying. Not very often, but sometimes. On the rest of the card, Whiteford and Fisher also ruled a no contest. This one because of an accidental eye poke. Another weird situation too. Kind of reminds me. What was that fight? Daniel was it Daniel Pineda and kid from Alpha Male.
Touchy Feely.
Yeah, kind of reminded me of that fight a little bit. Luke Trainer versus Bahati TKO. Tim Wilde got the unanimous decision over Yves Landau. That one kind of surprised me a little bit. Lewis Long with the win over Dubois, a technical submission, rear naked choke. Davey Gallen got the win over Kane Musa, unanimous decision. Alina, I know I'm going to butcher this like I did last time we were talking about the preview show. Kalianadu got the win over Kaskova via heel hook submission. I wasn't really surprised to see Jack Grant knock out Nathan Jones. Like I've said before, Nathan Jones is always Jekyll and Hyde. Like, just you never know which guy's going to show up. A lot of times in British MMA, Cage Warriors, Warrior Fight Series, we see a different version of Nathan Jones, and then he gets on the big stage and just doesn't perform. So I wasn't surprised to see Jack Grant get that win. Diata got the unanimous decision over Nathan Rose. Penko got the win over Dasila, a submission armbar. And then, of course, Kakarov got the win over Junior via unanimous decision. Any other fights on that card kind of stick out for you?
Nah, man, just was it the Luke Trainer fight?
Luke Trainer over
Luke Trainer. Yeah, nah, man. Just I just want to tell people, man, be on the lookout for that guy, man. He definitely is a top prospect out here. I mean, he's in Bellator, so I mean, you still want to call him a prospect or not, but he's definitely somebody to look out for.
I think you can say that in Bellator more than even the UFC, because a lot of times Bellator's had people that have fought their entire careers, Aaron Pico, stuff like that, AJ McKee, like starting off as a prospect, because they'll showcase you from 0-0, like your record. So they always have a lot of good up-and-coming fighters. They mix them on cards with other people, especially some of these international cards like this London card. They showcase some fighters that you might not have heard of from that area, and give them a chance to kind of show up. A Jack Grant, for instance, that you might not have heard of before, a Davey Gallen, stuff like that. And now they have a chance to kind of continue on in Bellator on some of these like Mohegan Sun cards or whatever else they do around the world when they do their international cards as well. That is Bellator 267. I do want to have a couple other mentions real quick before we get on to some other segments. Of course, Gamebred had their second MMA fight. We'll talk a little bit more about that in depth when we get to our rant. But Nicholson got the knockout win over Ivy, Emerson over Bennett in a couple of the top fights there. Gamebred continues to, Jorge Masvidal's promotion continues to kind of move on. They've had a couple of events now. Not a lot of fanfare as much for this one, but still, they kept it going. And, of course, Dana White Contender Series, episode 6 of this season. We had a couple new contracts given up. Smotritsky with the Mike Mallet fight was pretty awesome. So there's a couple of things going on. We talked about Mike Mallet, of course, on the Solomon Renfro interview that we did for Unfiltered. So check that out as well. Congratulations to anybody and everybody that seems to be coming on Dana White Contender Series right now, because it's like, you get a contract. You get a contract. Everybody gets a contract. And Dana White, meanwhile, is just lining up his fighters for cheaper and cheaper. It's like, between the Ultimate Fighter and the Dana White Contender Series, there are so many avenues to get into the UFC right now. And then we'll talk about it in just a second. And then they're cutting veterans left and right because they can pay these newer guys way cheaper than they're paying some of these veterans. So that is all of our results for the week. We're sticking to this format. Let us know comments, like, subscribe. Let us know what you think of everything we've been doing so far. And now it's time to actually get to some news. There's been a lot of stuff going on this week in MMA. Unfortunately, we have to start off with some really tragic news. Justin Thornton was involved in a bare knuckle fighting championships. I think it was August 10th. I may be a little bit off on the date. He fought a guy he had actually fought before, and Dylan Kleckler. They'd fought in MMA like 6 to 8 years ago, something like that. Justin Thornton, kind of always been an underdog fighter. He has a negative MMA record, but he's fought like almost 30 MMA fights. Steps over to bare knuckle, as a lot of the aging MMA fighters have been doing. Gets knocked out in, I want to say, 16 seconds or something like that. Gets paralyzed, or at least partially paralyzed from that. Later, because of complications this week, he passed away because of pneumonia. But a lot of that was based on the fact that he was still dealing with a lot of complications from that knockout. Not unlike Dana White to kind of take a shot at the competitor when something like this happens. What do you expect to happen type situation? I bash Dana for kind of taking a shot right now because like nothing ever happened like that in the UFC. 10,000 fights, whatever, 10,000 fighters, whatever, nothing ever like that's happened. Of course, Dana's got to promote that. I think it's the wrong time for that. I don't think that was proper. But he's not necessarily wrong either. We've talked about this on the show about the appeal of bare knuckle is also possibly the downside to bare knuckle is that something like this can definitely happen. Even some of the cleanest fights in bare knuckle, both guys or girls end up completely bloody messes. I know Brandon, he said a number of times on the show, he's not a huge fan of the bare knuckle. I get the entertainment point of it. It's like gladiators going to war. It's like watching a legalized street fight without the kicks. But not too many people are kicking in street fights anyway. But unfortunately, and my thoughts and prayers go out to Justin Thornton's family and friends. He is gone at the age of 38. Do you have any thoughts on this whole situation?
I mean, just sorry to hear that, you never have, it's always a sad thing when somebody passes away, especially in combat sports, but I guess, I don't want to say like, it's a part of combat sports, but I mean, if you look at boxing, it's happened, several times.
Yeah. It happens more in boxing.
Yeah. It's just one of those things, man. Like sometimes you don't know if it was something that could have been caught, beforehand, with the pre-fight medicals. Like say, some commissions are more lax than others, So
I don't know if that's something that could have been caught. I think that most of it was just caused by the knockout. I mean, it was just such a violent knockout that it paralyzed him because the way he hit his head on the canvas coming down, like it snapped his neck. And that could be happening to anything. I saw Roy Jones get knocked out by Antonio Tarver, and he wasn't the same for several fights after that. Some people say he's never been the same because after he did that, when he got knocked out, you saw his head bounce off the canvas, which is the worst thing in the world for a fighter to happen when they get knocked out, is when they fall. Obviously, they can't control their falling because they're knocked out. And if their head hits the canvas, that's a whole additional injury. I famously saw Terry Norris knock out Simon Brown, and Simon Brown was twitching because he was knocked out so cold. But he was fine afterwards because his head never hit the canvas. He was kind of like almost like stiff when he went down, and his head was staying up. So as long as your head doesn't hit the canvas, you always have a chance of recovery. But in all combat sports, it's things like this happen, and it's very, very, very unfortunate. And like I said, our prayers go out to Justin Thornton's family. We're sorry they have to deal with this. And Dylan Kleckler, obviously devastated by everything, being that he was the opponent. And him and Justin Thornton have been friends for years since their first fight. So he says that Justin Thornton lived to be in that cage and be in that ring, and that's how he wanted to live. So he was where he wanted to be. Transitioning from that, a little hard to transition from that, but Dustin Poirier versus Charles Oliveira, finally official. UFC 269, we're going to have the crowned champion versus allegedly the uncrowned champion going into UFC 269 on December 11th. A lot of people have constantly called Poirier the uncrowned champion, which I feel is completely disrespectful to Charles Oliveira, who's earned his right, one of the longest win streaks in all of MMA, especially in the UFC. Oliveira struggled just like Poirier back in the day. They both turned it on, and this is going to be an epic fight on December 11th. I can't wait to sit there and talk about this when we get closer. Brandon, any preliminary thoughts on that fight?
It's going to be and new.
That's simple, right? Just completely disrespecting Oliveira.
I'm not disrespecting Oliveira, man. I like him, but I'm saying Poirier is getting that strap.
I'll say this much, and I don't want to come off as hating on Dustin Poirier because I think he's had an epic run, and I think he's been absolutely amazing. But if he leaves his neck out the way he did against Conor, against somebody like against Charles Oliveira, that's a different result. And I think even you know that Oliveira has a grappler's chance in this one. And his striking has been improved. You saw against Michael Chandler when he was getting rocked in the first round. It was Oliveira's striking in the second round that actually changed that fight. So anything can happen. That's why we have these fights, and I can't wait to talk about this when it gets closer. Even Brandon's short little comment, I'm sure he's excited to see this come December 11th.
Oh, yeah, I am.
UFC, unfortunately, making some more cuts. Veterans like Thomas Almeida, Emily Whitmere, along the list of people getting cut this time from the UFC. it's just that time of year. They start thinning out their roster a little bit to make way for all these new kids that they get on Contender Series. Almeida's lost a couple fights in a row. He's never really been the same since that eye injury. Once a top prospect, I'd love to see him end up in PFL or Bellator and kind of resume his career a little bit and get back on the winning streak. Who knows? Maybe one day he'll be back in the UFC. We've seen a lot of people get cut, win a few fights on the independent scene, regional scenes. He can go down to Brazil, jungle fights, any of those fights, and get a few wins. A lot of international fight promotions like Icon, stuff going on like that. So I wouldn't think this is going to be the last we see of Thomas Almeida, especially. Speaking of Bellator, Patricio Pitbull and AJ McKee is a situation that has yet to really been resolved. AJ McKee, obviously, with a very dominant win, taking Patricio's 145-pound belt. He arguably wants to, in the rematch, he wants to go to 155 pounds and take his belt there too. Of course, AJ McKee is now currently fighting over that clause we talked about in the last segment, the Champions Clause with 3 more fights on his contract. Not quite a free agent like he wants to be. But Patricio's saying, hey, we fight at catchweight and we put both belts on the line. I don't know if that's even a legal option. I mean, I believe that's the reason why the weight classes and athletic commissions kind of do what they do. But that's not to say, because Patricio's also called for that title fight to happen in Brazil this time, home versus home. Brandon, what do you think of this whole situation? Is that even possible for them to do that? Or plausible?
Sure. I mean, they can have a catchweight fight. That's no problem. I mean,
both belts on the line?
I mean, if that's what the promotion wants to do, because, I mean, the commission has nothing to do with the titles. They only control just the fights. So if the promotion wants to say, hey, yeah, sure, these 2 belts are on the line, go for it. I mean, think about what the UFC, they just made a BMF belt out of nowhere, True. You just make belts up, it's up to the promotion. But I highly doubt it. Don't see that happening. It's either going to be back at 145 or it will be at 155.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see. I think that one's going to probably take place in Brazil, but they're going to probably have to back up the truck for AJ McKee to kind of take that at this point, because he definitely has one foot out the door because of his leverage at this point from having such a dominant victory and his contract technically being up, even though they have the Champions Clause extending it 3 fights. Quick question for you before we move on to the next thing. The Champions Clause.
Mm-hmm.
If he's still champion in 3 fights, does it continue or does it end?
I want to say it ends. Because I know I feel like I want to say like I felt like saying like with Bjorn Rebney. I feel like it used to be like if you were a champion and you won, you would always have like 1 fight. Like it would always just add like 1 fight to your to your contract.
You can't leave as champion.
Yeah, but I want to say with this one, I think it's just the 3 fights.
Yeah, I was confused because I know like technically he could sit out for over a year and then he'd be a free agent.
Yeah, he could do that too. Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised to see him wait a year and test those waters because he is so young. He can absolutely do that. And a lot of fighters take a year off in MMA because of the action. So it wouldn't be unheard of to not see him in the cage till late next year.
Man, he's trying to get on the Jake Paul fight card anyway too. He's trying to box, man. Showtime. I
can't blame the kid. I mean, the kid is young. He's on fire. He's, as you say, he's that guy. And he's got all the leverage and marketing power right now. He is pretty much one of the top 2 or 3 faces of the entire promotion. So it'd be interesting to see. Kind of a change in the guard with Pitbull. So Pitbull either has to get it back or, this is all AJ McKee's show at this point. The last bit of news, I don't know if Miesha Tate is trying to get a fight with Aspen Ladd, but she's definitely a poking the bear. Aspen Ladd, of course, had a horrendous weight cut. She definitely, whether she was 1.5 pounds over, 3 pounds under, cheating the scale, I don't know the situation inside and out. Aspen just had a really bad weight cut. The commission wouldn't clear her to fight after the whole weigh-in. Miesha Tate called her a cheater, called her everything else under the sun. Aspen Ladd's manager has come out and said, who is Miesha to talk? They've been going back and forth. I think the only solution at this point is that Miesha Tate versus Aspen Ladd. If Miesha Tate wins her fight coming up pretty soon. Any thoughts on that whole situation?
Aspen Ladd, may be time for you to move up to 145. I don't know.
There's been a couple fighters like that lately. The Norma Dumont, a bunch of other people. They keep trying to kill that 145-pound division, but I think there's a few fighters that can move up.
I mean, my thing is like, because this really isn't her first time, missing weight badly, because I think she did it before and also Invicta. So I'm saying, like, if it's 2 times, it might be time for you to move up, or hey man, maybe you need to really get your diet up to par. Because I remember I know she did an interview where she was kind of running her mouth about not having to lose weight or anything for this fight coming up, because she was already in shape, and then boom, you see what happened, where she originally missed it coming in at 141, and then she got it down to 137, but she was basically like dead,
She's blamed a couple things. She's blamed the time of the month.
Yep.
For people at home, you know what I mean. And then also I would wonder, we talked about this with the Figueiredo Moreno fight last year. When you have a fight scheduled, you make your cut, and then a few weeks later you actually run that fight. It's kind of hard to recut. If she did try to stay in shape, that's one thing, but so many camps are built around, all right, this many weeks out, you cut to this weight. This many weeks out, you cut to this weight. The fight week, you cut to this weight each day, right? Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, the fight never happens because Chason got hurt the first time. And then all of a sudden, she's trying to stay the same weight, but that's not, as a fighter, that's not an easy task. Especially when your normal walking weight's probably 10 to 15 pounds or 20 pounds higher. So I kind of wonder if that had a lot to do with it as well. But I do think 145-pound division makes sense for a lot of levels. Aspen Ladd's been that kind of contender that's been hurt and out of action for so long that she isn't really considered a contender for Nunez's title, even though she's like one of the only people that she hasn't beaten. Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing her going to 145 pounds, getting a win in there, maybe over a Felicia Spencer or a Norma Dumont or something like that, and then getting a shot at Nunez at 145 pounds if she's going to be a healthier fighter.
It's a shorter road, man. It's a shorter road at 145. I would do it. It's a shorter road. You probably really only need 1 win, maybe 2 wins. While here at 135, is that while here at 135, you might need to do 3 wins, 4 wins.
And the last thing I'll say on Miesha Tate, she doesn't have any shortage of opinions these days. As far as the John Jones arrests, she was quoted as saying, he's a grown-ass man and he needs to be responsible. She's not wrong, but, those who live in glass houses maybe shouldn't be throwing stones at everybody else. But I know she's also done a lot of the TV stuff the last couple of years, so maybe that's still in her brain. And one last piece of news before we move on to our rant and then picks and get out of here. Unfortunately, I know Brandon was looking forward to a Collision 3 Glory event. Alistair Overeem is out versus Rico for the heavyweight title. Reason being that he's been fighting an injury for over a month, and now is deciding to have surgery or something to address it because it won't go away. He's never really pulled out of too many MMA fights, if ever. So this is something new for him. So it must be something pretty serious, even if I haven't heard it disclosed exactly what the injury was. But it must be pretty serious if Alistair's pulling out. So hopefully he gets a speedy recovery. We get that fight sometime next year. He said he'll be back somewhere early, mid-2022. So that is that for this week in MMA. Now Brandon had his turn with the rant last week. It's back to me. And my rant is more of an intervention. The intervention of Charles Felony Bennett, Crazy Horse, if you want to call him that. The man has been fighting, what at this point, 2 decades? First time he had a professional fight was all the way back 1999. So 22 years Charles Bennett's been fighting. And normally that wouldn't be such an alarm for me if you're a heavier fighter, because I think heavier fighters have a little bit more longevity in this sport. But also the way he's been knocked out the last couple fights. Now, a lot of people have written off Felony over the years. It's not the first time. And he's had bounce backs before. He went over to Ryzen and won a tournament and did some other stuff. And he's obviously been fighting his personal demons most of his life. He credits Rashad Evans for being one of the people to kind of save his life. That's when he kind of dropped the whole crazy horse gimmick, went over to being called Felony. He's had some trouble with the law as well, obviously the nickname. My thoughts are this. Somebody needs to stop him from fighting, whether it's his camp or the promoters, because he's getting violently knocked out. Jason Knight, now Rob Emerson. Rob Emerson's a guy who's lost a few fights in a row. Steps in the ring with Crazy Horse and knocks him out clean. He's not even getting knocked out by top guys at this point. Not that Jason Knight's not one. Jason Knight's he's been battling his issues as well over the years, but he's still actually a pretty good fighter. He also went over to PFL and got a win right after he beat Bennett last time. But he's going through such long stretches, Brandon, of Crazy Horse losing to the point where 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 fights in a row, Brandon. That's how many he's lost in a row. The last time he had a win was back in 2016 when he did win that Rising Grand Prix, which he wasn't supposed to, but he did actually have a really good run and won the Rising Grand Prix. Those are where you see the pictures of him famously laying on the mat with the trophy. And he should have walked off in the sunset then. Brandon, I'll give you the last thoughts on this rant. At what point do you protect the fighter from himself to where either his camp is saying no more or the promoters won't touch him?
I mean, it really is up to I guess I really want to say if there's nobody there in his team that's going to say no, then it's up to the commission, up to the promoters. But I guess the thing is, man, he's still a body that maybe they can use to help either other people, make a name off themselves. He's saying yes to it. So I mean, if the commission is going to keep approving him, giving him a license to fight, then it's just going to keep on happening. Please, man, dude, I've seen, there are people man, they have one win and 99 losses, or something crazy like that. They're
eventually,
but hey, but that's what I'm saying. But the thing is, that's how it's going to be. If promoters are always going to need a body. If there's somebody who can do that, or they can sell tickets for themselves, they're always going to say yes to it until it gets really, really, really bad. Yes, he has 17 losses. His last two have been knockouts,
violent knockouts.
Yeah, I mean, hey man, it's up to the promoters to say no more. The fighter is always going to try to fight, but it's the commissions, it's the promotions, that because the promoter have to say yes, try to put him on the card, and the commission has to approve them. So I mean, until one of them say no, I mean, he might still keep on going.
I don't know how they're approving him, to be honest, because of his hand injuries. He famously injured his hand pretty badly in his first bare knuckle fight against Johnny Bedford, and these last couple fights have been bare knuckle as well with Gamebred. So, from a health point, I don't even know how he's getting sanctioned because he's said it himself. His hand's not right.
Yeah, man. Where are these commissions at? What state are these shows in? Mississippi? Yeah,
because you know why? Because even Florida wouldn't sanction this event.
Exactly, man. That's how it is. And like I'm saying, man.
If we're not going to sanction you, you shouldn't be throwing an event.
But hey, man, that's how it goes, man. Like saying you're gonna find those commissions because those states, they need money. They need something. So they'll say yes to it. So I'm saying that Mississippi will say yes to it. No problem, because they need it. They want it. They could be because there's nothing else coming there. Combat wise.
Well, to finish up this segment, Charles, if you're watching, I don't know if you are, but you should be. If you're watching, man, it's time. It's time, man. I don't tell a fighter when to stop fighting, but you need to seriously consider it. It's time to move on. You're a very likable guy. You got a great personality. I'm sure there's a lot of TV gigs or shows you could be on and make a good amount of money, because Charles Bennett has a great personality. He's always fun. He's always lively. With the amount of MMA shows that are out there, I'm sure there's a way he can make a living without having to put his body on the line. I'm sure he loves to do it. That's what people love to do. They're fighters. They fight. But at some point, you got to protect yourself from yourself. And I hope his people are, at some point, he doesn't have a bunch of yes men around him and somebody's going to tell him no. That's my rant for the week. Leave a comment. Let us know your thoughts on Charles Bennett and his situation and whether you think he should keep trying to fight or give it up. 17 losses in a row and a couple violent knockouts. Say maybe it's time. If it was 1 or 2 losses and a win, a few more losses and a win, might be a different story. But it's not decision losses. These are knockouts. So right now they're just using his body and abusing him. That's not what I want to see in MMA. All right, Brandon, let's get to some picks and get out of here. Last week we were both 3-1-1. Of course, we don't count the no contests. It's getting harder to catch up to Mr. Lead Dog over here because, quite honestly, man, his freaking win percentage is insane lately. So congratulations, Brandon. I hate you, and you're my best friend, but I hate you. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know which part I'm kidding about, though. Anyway, not my best friend, but he is one of my good friends. All love. We don't hate each other as much as we play on TV. I am the good guy, though. He is the heel. Anyway, let's get to UFC Vegas 39. Marina Rodriguez versus Mackenzie Dern. Both women are on a tear. Marina's been going through the Michelle Watersons of the world. Dern, ever since she had her first hiccup of a loss, has gotten quite on a tear. We always keep talking about there are levels to this. I'll go ahead and start because I always let Brandon start. I'm picking Mackenzie Dern in this one, only because even though Rodriguez, I think, has a clear striking advantage, I think Dern has gotten way better on her feet. And I think if she grabs her, it's over. I think it's that simple. And I haven't seen Rodriguez avoid being pulled into guard. Every fight, she seems to somehow slip into going in the ground and get back up and beat somebody. This fight, if she goes to the ground, it's over. And I think Dern, I mean, she's gotten so much into MMA to the point where she broke her nose and she was happy about it because she felt like she was a real fighter now. Mackenzie Dern is not just a pretty face. She is, and maybe it's motherhood. Like maybe she's just unleashed an animal inside of her, like to protect her baby, protect like that mama bear. But Mackenzie Dern has turned into a different kind of level. And I don't think Rodriguez is on that level. So I'm picking Dern in this one. Who you got and why?
Same, man. I'm picking Dern as well. Yeah, man, exactly. I'm sorry. I like Mackenzie Dern. Like you said, man, Rodriguez, she probably does have the striking advantage. But my thing is, I think Mackenzie Dern has gotten better on her feet where she can still hold her own. But then also, too, though, she has that ace in her back pocket, which is her jiu-jitsu. So which say, man, I don't think she's gonna win a striking fight, but I think she can use her hands and her kicks to help set up, her jiu-jitsu, either taking her back, maybe getting a trip, getting her down, or just pulling guard. So I think Mackenzie Dern will get her hand raised and she'll keep moving up in the rankings.
Yeah, I think the biggest hiccup on Rodriguez's record was that split decision loss against Esparza. What does Esparza do? She takes you down. If that's the roadmap to beating you, I don't think a matchup with Mackenzie Dern is a good matchup. Could she win a puncher's chance? Absolutely. But I think Dern's going to do the smart thing. I think Dern's going to take her down, grapple her, cling to her, pull her down, whatever she wants to do to pull guard. And then I think it's a wrap. So maybe not the first round, probably the second round, but I think Mackenzie Dern's getting this one done. The co-main event is going to be a kind of exciting fight. I'm kind of looking forward to this one. Randy Brown versus Jared Gooden. Both guys come to bang. Both guys come to get business done. Who do you got in this one? I'll let you start on this one.
I'm going with Rude Boy Randy Brown. Fellow tri-state area guy. He's over in New York. Like I said, man, both these guys come to bang. I'm just gonna go with Randy Brown because he's a local guy, plus two, he's had more fights in the UFC. So I think I'm just going with him.
I'm glad you did that because I was on the fence and I think I can easily go with Jared Gooden now just to try to catch up to you. But no, I actually think Jared Gooden's going to win. I think Jared Gooden's the bigger guy. I could be wrong about that. Randy looked great against Oliveira. He got that rear naked choke. But Jared Gooden's been knocking people out. And that Stolze fight really opened my eyes. Now, he did have a couple losses before that, but that were to veterans like Alan Juban, people like that. I think Jared Gooden looks so fantastic his last fight. Hopefully something's clicked with him. He's had a number of fights. I think he's 18-6 or something like that. Both guys have been up and down throughout their career. Both have a ton of ability. I do think Jared Gooden is the slightly bigger fighter. I know he's taller. He's 6'4", but I think he's also kind of a little bit bulkier fighter. So I do think Jared Gooden's going to get this win. And I think it's probably going to be a knockout one way or the other, or a submission. I think it's going to be a stoppage for either fighter. But I think the razor close choice between the two, and a pick'em kind of fight, I'm going with Gooden. So we'll see if one of us if I can make some ground up on Brandon in that one. But I'm pretty sure most people know at home which fight Brandon's going to pick for his fight of the night to look out for. Go ahead and let people at home know what fight you're looking at, Brandon.
I'm going with the Phil Hawes versus Wynn fight. I got Phil Hawes taking it. Say, man, dude has just been on a tear ever since he's came into the UFC. Like I said, man, dude, I think Hawes is a bigger guy as well. Like Wynn is like a short dude, like for this weight class. Like I want to say he's like 5'6", and he's coming in at 185. So I just think Hawes can probably out wrestle him, has the power, outstrike him. He'll get his hand raised.
Ironically, he's fought as high as 195 or 5'6" as well.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you on that one. I think Hawes probably will make easy work out of this fight. Also, in my fight pick, I'm kind of thinking somebody's going to make easy work as well. I think Charles Rosa is going to run through Damon Jackson. I think Rosa has been kind of bouncing back. He's had a couple hiccups in his career. She's lost to Shane Burgos and some other stuff. But Damon Jackson's been on the downside since he's come back to the UFC. He's really got one move. It's one of those things. Protect your neck. Stay away from the leech. Keep your distance, and it's an easy night for Charles Rosa. If Damon Jackson grabs him, it could be a different situation. But I think Charles Rosa is a veteran. He knows how to keep his distance, and I think he's going to make light work out of Damon Jackson. Also on that card, speaking of grappling, Tim Elliott's on that card fighting Nicolau. That's going to be on the main card. Sabina Mazo versus Agapova. We got Chris Gutierrez versus Kalaris. Another fight I was almost picking, Alexander Romanov, undefeated still. He's going against the very tough Jared Vanderaa. I know on one of our it always feels weird in MMA to call something a sister show, but I guess that's kind of like the way they do in the world, like sister site, sister this. Mm-hmm. But on our other show on our network, Cage My IQ, I know Dan was actually picking Vanderaa in this one, but I think Romanov is he's too skilled, like especially grappling, to kind of like get in a situation to get caught in a firefight at heavyweight. I think he'll grapple him, wear him down, and lay on him for 3 rounds and win that fight. We talked about the Rosa. Lupita Godinez is back in the cage. She's going to be fighting Juarez. Silviana Juarez is actually a late replacement. Making her promotion debut. She's a 10-2 fighter, so that could actually be surprising to some people. I wouldn't be surprised to see an upset in that one. And then also the last fight, Steve Garcia versus Ontiveros in the preliminaries. Any other fights in that card kind of stand out to you, Brandon?
No, man. I really kind of want to go back to just your fight pick, the Charles Rosa fight. I totally agree with you. I think Rosa will have easy work here, which is so crazy because the betting odds.
You agree with me? I know.
Yeah. Yeah, but the betting odds, man, they actually have Rosa as an underdog. So hey, man, for the people out there who like to gamble, you want to put some money on a live dog. Charles Rosa is your guy.
I didn't know that. I'm about to go online real quick and make that pick.
That's it.
I thought about Brandon, and we flirted with it in the past of throwing the odds out there for some of these fights, but we do our show on a Wednesday. Before we used to do it on a Tuesday. And when we do it, by the time you get to fight night, some of those odds have completely flipped based on a number of circumstances, weight cuts, fighter changes, so I just left them alone. I like to gamble occasionally on sports. Obviously, Brandon's right there in the mecca over in the New York, New Jersey area of a lot of the sports gambling. So and not all of us have the luxury of being able to go to Giant Stadium and from our seats make a DraftKings bet, Brandon. Okay?
Sorry, I use Caesar Sportsbooks, but hey, it's okay. We'll take either one, baby. Either one wants to sponsor DraftKings Caesar Sportsbook. We'll take it, baby.
And you know what? I can't even say anything about that. That is our picks for the week. Tell us what you think in the comments, of course. Before we get out of here real quick, like I mentioned first, check out fightersfirst.shop. Support the show, support the brand. We don't have any advertising. We do this because we're fans. We do this because we have a passion to do it. You don't always like what we say. We don't always like what you say back to us either in the comments. Somebody said something about my rant on Dana White last week, calling me, what did he say? We're clowns or something? I don't remember. Anyway, it sucks that he's not going to be a subscriber. I'm sorry. I'll try to do better. No, I'm not going to do. You can kick rocks. I don't care. We do love most of our fans, though. We love hearing interaction. We love going back and forth with you, especially when you're talking about real comments and real fights and having actually opinions about stuff. That's the best, whether it's on Twitter, Instagram, on our YouTube channel. If you got something to say it. We love going back and forth with you. We love engaging with our fans, and we love engaging with just other people that like and think like we do, that have a passion for this the way we do. Are we going to be right all the time? He might be. I might not be. But we're going to keep coming at you every single week, except for like around holidays when we do actually take a week for ourselves. Other than that, we'll be back right here next week talking about all the action just like we did this week. UFC Vegas 39. We'll break down the results. Next week, I think it's Brandon's turn to have a rant, so we'll see what he comes up with. We're going to start rotating that a little bit. And then some new news and everything like that. So anything else you want to add before we get out of here today, Brandon?
Oh, yeah, I just realized I meant to bring it up in the news. Yeah, duh. Corey Sandhagen, Peter Yan. That's happening.
Yeah, I thought we talked about that last week.
No, because it wasn't official yet. I think it became official like over the weekend.
I thought, or maybe we just talked about it that it was going to happen.
Yeah.
For his part, Sandhagen says that's going to be the real title because he thinks Peter Yan is the champion anyway. So he won't have any issue calling himself the undisputed champion if he does beat Peter Yan. We'll talk about that when that fight gets closer. I don't really feel, and obviously that's just in a couple weeks, but I don't feel that Peter Yan will have any trouble beating Sandhagen after what I saw the Bellator fight. We'll talk about it, but I think Peter Yan has the striking. I think he has what Sandhagen weakness might be is coming down. I just don't think Peter Yan or Sandhagen does really well with a fighter like Peter Yan who can do level changes and still attack you at any angle. So we'll see. Could be another Frankie Edgar situation. Could be a quick night. I don't know. We'll figure it out when we talk about it in a couple weeks. But until then, that's enough time this week. We'll see you next week. Thank you for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Leave a comment, constructive comment. Even if it's a bad comment, we like it as well. Thank you very much for watching. For The Mechanic, I'm Mike Ginn. This is Art of MMA. We're out.